medium of exchange of digital currency. Some people say that it's the currency of the future. I say it's the currency of now. Hey guys, how you doing? This is me, Ryan here. It's another edition of Crypto Talk Live. Today is Wednesday, November 8th. Show normally starts at noon, but I guess it's about 12:18, 12:20. But that's neither here nor there. One of the things that took place on the last show was I basically had a question for you guys. The question was, I'm going to show you the question. This is the first order of business today. You guys see that right there? You know what that is? That's the Steemit Silver Round. So I put it in this nice little fancy jewelry box, so it's almost as though I'm asking you to marry me, but I'm not. I'm asking you to call in and win this coin. So right before we get to that, I'm going to let you know that today we're going to be discussing community on the blockchain, and I'll have Matthew Carano with Swarm City, and I'll also have Robert Mayer, who's also with Swarm City Project. So we're going to be discussing what Swarm City is, what it means for community on the blockchain, and then just in general, community on the blockchain. So you guys are getting this message. I want you to know that go ahead and leave comments in the comment thread, and I'll let you know when I'm ready to give away the token. So the first person who basically the first person who claims it's going to get it. This is number 800 and sorry, there we go. This is number 803 of 1500, and that's the authenticity card right there. So I just want you to pay attention. I'll let you know when we're ready to give that away, and then also later on in the show we'll be giving away SWTs, which are Swarm City tokens. And don't worry, some of you may have never heard of it, but we're going to explain to you what it is and why it's important and how it can change the way that we communicate and do business with one another. So I have the one guest who's in the studio right now is Robert Mayer. I'm going to go ahead and go to Robert and have him introduce himself and let us know how he became so entwined with the Swarm City project.
All right. Thank you, Ryan, for having me on. I guess my short story of how I got involved was last year in January. I got laid off from my job. I have a background with software development, and I gave Uber driving a try as a little part-time gig and found that I liked it. So ever since, I've been doing that mostly on the weekends. And then about last summer, I came across on Facebook a project known as Arcade City, and what they were proposing is decentralized rideshare services. And I thought, wow, that sounds really good to me. Basically cutting out the middleman and allowing people who are rideshare drivers to be true entrepreneurs on the platform without a middleman taking a cut off the top. So without going into the whole sordid details of the story, what is now Swarm City is basically a spin-off of the Arcade City vision, but they've expanded on it in various ways. Basically not all about ride sharing, but just a general decentralized peer-to-peer services platform. Ride sharing is perhaps the #1 use case for that platform, but essentially I like to use the analogy of Craigslist. Craigslist is an open platform by which any service provider can market their services and connect with consumers in a peer-to-peer manner. Now, Craigslist is not truly decentralized, but it's an open platform, and when the consumers connect and transact with the service providers, Craigslist is not taking a cut off the top. So that's essentially what we're proposing with the Swarm City platform, is just a platform to let service providers and consumers connect peer-to-peer.
All right. Well, see, that sounds pretty good. I think that kind of explains the whole idea of community, especially on the blockchain. So I guess, every time I look into Swarm City, I always describe it as being like a Craigslist on the blockchain, and that's one of the things that I like about it. Because on Craigslist, there's certain things that you're restricted from posting. Posts can be taken down. Posts can be flagged, completely removed. But by having it on something that's centralized, it puts that power back into the hand of into the users. So, like, if I want someone to, I guess, come and do some plumbing at my house, I don't have to go through the whole making sure that they're certified through the state or through the city and that they have this, they have that. If I've done business with the person and I know that they're a good plumber, I can invite them in my home and have them do it. But obviously it was all founded around the idea of ride sharing. But I think once you implement it, you realize, okay, there's a whole lot more to doing peer-to-peer style business than just ride sharing. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to go ahead and get Matthew Carano on the air. So we're gonna call into him. He's the communications director, and we've been speaking back and forth, for me to get a better understanding. But I felt it would be a lot better to have someone who's more involved in the project to explain it, because it, especially for people that are new to the crypto space, it can be difficult at times to navigate. So let's go ahead and get him on air.
I'm here, I think.
You are here. Matthew, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am doing well, man. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm really looking forward to the knowledge you're going to bestow upon us. And I already like where this is going.
Okay, right on. Well, you can call me Matt, by the way, and it's definitely a pleasure to be on.
Hey, Matt. This is Robert.
Hey, Robert. How are you?
Great.
So, do you have questions to start off?
I'm going to. First thing I want to know is, how'd you get involved in the Swarm City project?
Well, so actually, Swarm City came from another project called Arcade City that actually came from another project, which was a free Uber campaign that occurred in my home city of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, when Portsmouth effectively outlawed Uber by requiring essentially like a licensing, some sort of licensing agreement with the city. And so, if you know, you probably aren't too familiar with my area, but the seacoast area of New Hampshire is pretty small, but there are, I don't know, 13 or 14 cities and towns kind of around it. And so if every town and city around required, to get permits or license, it would be pretty costly for any Uber driver, because they tend to drive between all these cities, right? So if you needed a separate license or a separate permit to go from Portsmouth to another community, it would just be, sort of a lot. So at that point, there was this big upswell, this movement, free Uber movement that happened, caused a lot of publicity. And from that, the idea of a decentralized rideshare app, one that couldn't be shut down, sort of was born, and that was Arcade City. And Arcade City started their project, and as soon as I was witnessing all this happening, and I knew some of the players in Arcade City, so I was watching it. But as soon as Arcade City was trying to develop their app, it became pretty clear that they couldn't do it. They didn't have they needed to use Ethereum to use smart contracts to make this decentralized app, and they just didn't have the technical prowess to do that. So they made so much noise that a dev group from Antwerp in Belgium noticed what was going on and reached out and said, "Hey, we're doing this type of development already, and we like what you're doing with your community. Maybe we should partner up." 2 days later, some parties from Arcade City went to Antwerp to write the white paper, and basically there was a token sale last November, which I participated in because having followed it really acutely since it started, I knew that there was a lot of upside to the project, so I participated in the token sale. And then there was some friction between the dev team and the original founder of Arcade City. Agreements were made to do the token sale, but the founder wanted to sort of go against that. And
hey, Matt, who's the original founder of the Arcade City?
His name is Christopher David, actually.
Okay.
So he sort of reneged on a promise. Like Christopher David unfortunately has a lot of toxicity around his past. He's a really he's really good at rallying people up, of creating a lot of hype and getting a community sort of energized. It's like one of his really great gifts, and he tells a great story. Yeah, absolutely. Great at that. And I mean, I'm really thankful for his ability to do that, because it's the reason why I paid attention. But there's been I don't want to get into it because I don't want to disparage him, but there's some of his history was catching up with him at the time. And so the dev group made it clear that if they were to be on board, that Christopher David had to take a sort of a different role, like a role where he couldn't have fiduciary responsibility of the tokens and stuff. So, and he agreed to that, but then he went back on, so he was supposed to turn over some assets, the Arcade City domain. And if you're a developer doing an open source project, like your reputation is basically the code that you write and the URL that it's attached to. And he sort of started leveraging the Arcade City domain. He wouldn't turn it over without them acquiescing to giving him a little bit more power than they'd agreed to. And so the dev team basically said, okay, fine, screw it. You can keep your domain name, and we'll brand fork to Swarm City. So anyway, long story short, you asked me how I got involved. I was paying attention, but I really started communicating right as this brand fork was happening, because I wanted to figure out who I should back, who was really going to move the project forward the best way. And it became clear. So I contacted Christopher David, and I contacted the dev team at Swarm City, and it became really clear that the dev team at Swarm City knew exactly what they were doing. They're excellent devs. They're solving critical problems. So I started really communicating there with them, and they were releasing their posts on Reddit and Medium, and I started noticing that this isn't, English is a second language for them. There's Germans involved, there's Belgians involved. So I started noticing, some of the posts could be written in a little bit better or I guess. I wouldn't say better, but just more of what an English-speaking person would say. So I asked them about it, and I started editing some of their posts, and they just started trusting me more and more, and I started doing more of the writing and communicating and video work and all that stuff for them. So that's the long story of how I became involved.
So I guess it's safe to say that Swarm City had started, I guess, around the premise of really decentralization and I guess, getting away from some sort of centralized governing body that can restrict people from making money, right?
That's right. Yeah, and that's the most important thing. Is like decentralization is this idea that of censorship resistance. Basically, it's like if there's a third party involved in your transaction, if it's you and me, and we're doing a deal on Amazon, right? And Amazon doesn't like us doing this deal, even though we both are into it, we agreed to the terms, we like each other, whatever. Amazon can kill that deal at censoring the deal. So decentralization is this whole idea of creating censor resistance, and it's really like, it's sort of come to a head with this kind of peer-to-peer revolution. Like Uber kind of started this really in at least the U.S. consciousness within the last 6, 7, 8 years, this idea that we can start to give and receive services, but from peer to peer with our peers, right? So even though Uber's this company, right, rideshare drivers and riders, they're neighbors essentially. But what's happening is you're starting to see locales or government, states, feds starting to push back against this idea and put regulations on or even stop Uber type things from happening. And so if an app is decentralized, meaning it's censor resistant, well then no third party can shut it down either. So what's
the technology, if you don't mind me asking? Because when it comes to digging in deep into D apps or decentralized apps, I don't understand kind of the I guess in a very to summarize it, could you explain how do you decentralize an app?
Yeah, absolutely. So the great thing is we didn't necessarily have the tools to do this until Ethereum came along. In Ethereum, most of your listeners, if they know Bitcoin, or I'm not sure how crypto savvy they are, but they've probably heard of Ethereum. And Ethereum is this code base, it's this ecosystem that allows people to create decentralized apps. And the tools that you need in order to do that, or things that Ethereum provides, are a blockchain, and these things called smart contracts, right? And so most people probably know what a blockchain is, if they're relatively savvy to the crypto
Yeah, I think
space.
if they're listening, they probably have an idea, or they've at least heard it before.
Yeah. So it's a distributed ledger, right? It allows us to attach transactions to a public place where we all can just 100% know that they're legit, that they're not fraudulent, right? So a blockchain. But the smart contract, what it does is it allows you to program a deal before it happens. So you can say, if this type of thing happens, then this deal will go through, right? And in the case of like rideshare as an example, a smart contract could do this. It could, once two people decide to engage in a rideshare deal, the smart contract can immediately take escrow from both people and put it into an escrow account, right? And then once both parties at the end of the deal say, yes, the deal, the ride went great, well, then the smart contract can automatically sweep those funds to the driver. So it's a way to program a deal to happen before it ever does, so that people know when they get into the deal that it's going to go a certain way. So those two tools make decentralized apps or decentralized commerce possible. Does that make sense?
It is making sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've actually just started looking more into Ethereum and just kind of reading on the whole blockchain aspect of it, understanding the purpose of smart contracts and what they are. 'Cause initially, when I heard the term smart contracts, I was thinking like signing a document with an iPad. It wasn't until I read into it that I started to understand exactly what a smart contract was. But I was just trying to gather information on how, like, where this application lives. But it lives on the Ethereum blockchain.
That's exactly right. It lives on the blockchain. And that's important too. They're open source. They live on the blockchain, so people can look at them and verify that they're doing the right stuff. Basically, you can verify that the deal is going to be good before you ever decide to get into the deal. And so the big picture idea of this is, if you can trust the technology, if you can trust the smart contract, and if you can trust the blockchain, then you don't have to trust the party you're dealing with, right? If you both trust the technology, you don't have to trust each other. So what this allows us to do is get into business, do transactions with, do deals with people we don't know, who don't have reputation with us, right? If we trust the technology, then we can transact with them, because basically the technology proves to us that the deal's going to go okay.
I wanted to say something about that. That's an excellent point, and we like to use the Craigslist analogy because it pretty well matches what we're talking about. But the obvious thing that's missing is the reputation. If I go onto Craigslist and I'm looking for a painter to paint my house, I have no way of knowing through that platform what this person's reputation is. Is this somebody who's done a lot of transactions before? Is it somebody who just posted for the first time yesterday? I have no way of knowing. But with the blockchain technology, we have a public immutable ledger of all past transactions. So if someone's a rideshare driver, for example, and has done hundreds of successful rides, well, I can probably trust that person.
Right.
So you're saying just by, I guess, looking on something like Etherscan, you'd be able to look at this person's account and see how many different transactions they've had through the Swarm City platform, and that way you can gauge their reputation?
Yeah, except once the app is fully built, that front end will be able to provide that information in a more user-friendly way.
So have you?
Yeah. So
Go
so
ahead, Matt.
yeah. So the thing that like keeps becoming more and more clear to me is that Swarm City, at its very, very core, is a reputation system. And let me tell you why this is so important. It's like the reason why. Okay, so there's always risk in interacting with, whether it's just exchanging information with someone, or transacting, like buying something or getting a service from someone. There's always risk in that interaction, and there's more and more risk the further they are removed from like your circle of trust, right? If you're transacting, if you're buying something or exchanging information with your wife, your spouse, or your kids or your family or whatever, chances are the deal's going to go okay because you have a lot of reputation with that person. But the further out you go from your circle of trust, people who maybe don't share a culture with you, or people who live in a different part of the world, or aren't friends of friends, doing a deal with them is risky because you haven't sort of you haven't built up any reputation with each other. And so that's why these third party like intermediaries were formed. And that, like in the olden days before the internet, the way old days, the Wayback Machine, you saw like banks were intermediaries, right? It's like it's a place where you could put your money, or escrow services were intermediaries. Like if you were doing a real estate transaction, you'd have lawyers and you'd have a bank that would get involved and sort of take the place of reputation, so you could still deal with someone else without knowing them, and sort of trust the system in place. And now with the internet, you've got things like Amazon and Uber, who are basically reputation systems. If you go into Amazon and you do a deal on Amazon, you're transacting with somebody you probably don't know, probably you've never met, and Amazon is effectively vouching for you and vouching for that party. And so that's what these reputation services are. But the problem is they're very centralized solutions. If you think about Amazon or Uber, they've got all this infrastructure. They've got servers, they've got employees, they've got website to maintain, and that ends up costing a lot of money for them to do. And that cost gets put on to the people who are doing the deals.
Yeah, but
so like in Amazon,
they can also restrict your account at any moment for whatever reason. Because I have a seller account on Amazon, which I tend to have issues with occasionally. I mean, so much to the point where I just stopped using it recently.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So not only is there financial cost to doing business through Amazon or Uber, which could be like a 30% charge, but there's also the philosophical cost, is they can shut you down whenever they want. They have say. So these and also, in order for Amazon and Uber to vouch for you and vouch for the party you're doing business with, they collect a lot of your information and they store it centrally too. So they become honeypots for hackers, right? They have a ton of information on me. So there's a financial cost and there's a philosophical cost of using third-party intermediaries, centralized intermediaries like this. So what Swarm City does is it allows decentralized transactions and decentralized commerce by removing the need for a middleman. Not even Swarm City itself can stop a deal from happening. But the reason why it works is because there's reputation system built in. There's a way to see whether the person that you're dealing with is a good actor or not, and this is how it's done. So a smart contract, not only does it sort of manage the deal for you by automatically doing escrow between you and the person you're transacting with, or automatically moving money once the deal is done and everybody says the deal was okay. But what it also does is it mints reputation tokens for every single deal that you do. So if you and I were to get into, say you're a rideshare driver, I'm a rider, after the deal is done and we both say, yep, it was great, you get minted reputation and I get minted reputation that gets affixed to our public-private key set. So like our identity, and it stays there forever because it's minted on the blockchain. So people, as Robert was saying, if I do 100 rideshare rides, people will see that I'll have 100 rideshare tokens. It'll be right in my persona online. So the next time, I want to do a deal with somebody, I want to get a ride, they'll be able to see that I have done all these rideshare rides and that I'm okay. I'm not someone who's going to strangle them in the car, right? So that's how it works. Is you need the reputational component to make true decentralized commerce work.
So with that being said, where is Swarm City now as a project? Just for the record, I do have a swarm.city account.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could explain to the viewers and listeners where Swarm City is.
So the first thing that needed to happen was we needed to create this wallet, which you have, right? And a wallet in blockchain is, well, it's not just a wallet, it's your public-private key pair. And that in blockchain world is your identity. If you can spend from your wallet, that's how you prove that you own it. That proves your identity, basically. So that needed to be created first, and that was created sometime in January or February of this year. The second thing that needed to happen is how we actually do commerce in Swarm City is in these marketplaces. And eventually anybody will be able to create their own marketplace. But say like, if you and I, we'll just use the rideshare example because it's just a really easy one to do. But say, once again, you and I wanted to do a deal in Swarm City, a rideshare deal in Swarm City. You're a driver, I'm a rider. What we would do is I would go into a rideshare marketplace. Let's call it like Need a Ride. And the way we designate marketplaces in Swarm City is with a hashtag, so it would be hashtag Need a Ride. So I would click on hashtag Need a Ride and I would write down, oh, I need to go from Elm Street to Maple Street, I'll pay $10. And then you as a rideshare driver would know that a bunch of people are looking for rides in that marketplace. And so you would be searching hashtag Need a Ride for riders, who might enlist your services. And you'd come across mine, and you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm pretty close to Elm Street. So you'd click on it and you'd say, yeah, I'd love to do that. $10, that seems about right to me. Let's do it. And we would both agree to the deal. And like I said, that's when the escrow thing happens and yada, yada. But that idea of that marketplace, that hashtag, that marketplace, is the smart contract. And so we needed to create the marketplace framework first, which was the second release that happened in June called Boardwalk. And the first marketplace was released then, and it was called Pioneer. And now Pioneer doesn't have a specific context to it, like hashtag Need a Ride would be a rideshare context. It's just sort of a catch-all kind of marketplace. But right now, people can create a deal in hashtag Pioneer. They can go there and say, hey, I'd love to, I need some roasted coffee. Can someone send me some roasted coffee? And another person could be searching on hashtag Pioneer and saying, yeah, I can do that for you. I'll send that, I'll send that to you now. So it basically, it's like in tech speak, it's the MVP. It's the minimum viable product. It proved that smart contracts work, that reputation tokens can be minted. So the first marketplace was done, and that's Pioneer.
Now,
so that's where we are now.
Someone wants to sell a project. All right, you're in Portsmouth. I'm in Houston, and I want to sell you a cell phone. How would we go about exchanging securely or, through some sort of encrypted network the information that's needed to facilitate the transaction? Obviously, we'd go through the smart contract aspect of it. I'd send you the SWT. And how would we share the information for shipping?
Oh, yeah. So, and this will get like more kind of complicated, but yet easier to use as we move forward. But right now, what you would do is just when you, so if, say I'm buying a cell phone from you, right? I would go into hashtag Pioneer and I would put that request on there. I'd say, I need the new iPhone, it was a 10X or something. I need the new iPhone X shipped to New Hampshire. I'll pay whatever, 500 SWAT, whatever it is. And you on your end would see it and say, oh yeah, I'd love to provide it. You click on it, right? And what would happen is as soon as you click on it, and we agree to the deal, it creates this like encrypted tunnel using Whisper. Whisper is a protocol, an Ethereum protocol that allows devices to talk to each other. It creates an encrypted tunnel between just device to device, and we could just exchange information right there, like by text through the app, basically.
Okay. So I know that Swarm City is one project, but are there any other projects outside of Swarm City that are blockchain related that you might be working on, or something that, any idea that you think you might see come to fruition?
Well, I mean, I've really got my hands full with this. The next, the next thing is a much slicker version of that MVP. Another marketplace will be released here very soon, and then we're going to be opening up marketplaces to everybody to create. But also, there's another component of Swarm City that you might be interested in, and that's called the storefront. And what storefronts are, they're these GUIs, these graphic user interfaces that the person who owns the marketplace can affix to their marketplace that makes it easy for people to use their marketplace. So for instance, it's one thing to go in to the interface as it is now and click on the hashtag and whatever, do it that way. Mm-hmm. But if you're a rideshare driver and rider, you probably need things like a map, right? Like a location map and maybe rating systems and all that. Well, you can't really do that with the current setup, but with the storefront release, people will be able to add those things to their marketplace. So that's sort of the end goal is people, and it'll look to a user, it'll look very much like an app looks now, like Uber app looks now or Amazon app looks now. So that's sort of the kind of the end game goal is to create these things. And so my entire focus is on Swarm City until we're done all that stuff.
So what's going to be the next? I'm going to ask Robert, see if you know. What's going to be the next rollout? What's it going to be called? Because right now we're on Broadway. Do you know what's up?
Boardwalk.
Boardwalk. Oh, we're on Boardwalk. Boardwalk. Sorry, guys. It sounds fancy. That's why I said it.
On Broadway. That's right.
Well, my understanding is that the dev team is currently working on their version 2 of the Boardwalk. The one that was released originally in mid-June was, as Matt explained, kind of a proof of concept. But there's a lot of issues and bugs with it, and so they're really spending a lot of time trying to tighten up the code, make sure it's really solid before moving on to the third and final phase, which is storefront. Once we get to that point, that's when I get really interested, because I've been working with the dev team specifically on the storefront that'll be needed for rideshare services. I have a development background myself. Unfortunately, my skill set doesn't really align that well with the needs of the dev team, so I'm not working on the code myself. But the way I chose to contribute to that was I created the functional specifications that they'll be using as a guide once they're ready to start building out that storefront, because I have pretty vast experience with over 18 months doing rideshare. I think I have a good mix of understanding the software business and understanding the rideshare business that I can help guide them to produce an excellent product. I mean, ultimately, the goal is to have the so-called Uber killer app. It's no small task, but I'm very confident that the dev team that we have in place is capable of doing it.
So, Robert, have you engaged in any transactions on the Swarm.city?
No, not yet.
So, how about you, Matthew? Have you?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, could you tell us about, I guess, how seamless the experience was for you?
For me, it was very seamless, but it's Pioneer. That marketplace is really, like we were saying, is really a proof of concept, and it totally worked for me. So things that I did were just like, hey, retweet this tweet, and I'll pay to SWAT or whatever.
It's
Stuff
essentially
like that was
like
what I was
a
doing.
test environment for us at
Yeah,
this
exactly.
stage.
Yeah.
But it is a test environment where one can actually make money in the process.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're actually exchanging value. You are actually creating reputation too. And that's another cool thing is people who are creating Pioneer reputation right now, so reputation in that marketplace, that's like, 5 years from now, people will look to folks who have Pioneer reputation attached to their identity and be like, whoa, these guys, this is the old guard. These are the people who have been around a while, who know what they're doing. So I should probably listen to them, maybe, because they might know what they're talking about. So I think gaining Pioneer reputation right now is actually something that will have value in the future.
So tell us, where can we find SWT?
Oh, I mean, the easiest way is to work for it. So if you go to swarm.city and create a wallet, create an identity, you can respond to requests in Pioneer. That's one way. You could also, there are a few exchanges, Shapeshift, Changely offers SWAT, so does Bittrex, probably the
Ether Delta.
Ether Delta too. It's a little, that's not the easiest. Maybe Robert, you might be better at it than I am, but that's challenging.
It's a little clunky user interface, but if you have dealt with Ethereum ERC20 tokens before, have a little bit of experience under your belt, you can pick up on it. The good thing about it is that any Ethereum token is available on there, and there's hundreds of them.
Matt, one of the things that that I was thinking is, so I had gotten on swarm.city. It's been a while, actually. So it was Friday the 13th. That was the day that I joined. And I couldn't find anything. What would be the reason for that?
You couldn't find any. Did you go into Pioneer and Marketplace and there were no requests?
Yeah, there were no requests.
I mean, sometimes that'll happen too. Like I think it's been probably like when it first came out in June, it was like a new toy, and so a lot of people were playing with it. But right now, we're just all sort of like we know most of the people who understand Swarm City, like or have been involved in Swarm City, know what it has to offer and like has used it enough, so it's no longer. We know it's clunky, and we know the new one's going to be amazing. So it's like we sort of, I guess, a little bit about it. But usually there are some requests. So one thing that you can do is just make sure you can sort by distance, and you just want to make sure you sort by the entire globe so that you're seeing requests from all over the place.
Yeah.
There might be 4 or 5 requests worldwide, but there's probably not going to be any in your locale. If you're set to like 10 miles or something, that's probably not going to happen.
So I'm assuming
that could be why.
It costs to put a request, right?
No, it does not.
Okay.
So here's the thing: is if you're requesting a service or a product, then I believe it actually right from the get-go. It's been a while since I've used it too, but right from the get-go, I think it takes the amount. Wait a minute, the request. When does it take your? No, it doesn't. It doesn't cost to make a request. What it does is it costs you if you enter into a deal. It's going to take the deal amount from your wallet.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're like, I want to go to, or I want to ride share, I'll pay 10 SWAT to do it, and someone engages you about it, it's going to escrow 10 SWAT from both parties in its current iteration. So it'll go into an escrow account basically.
And what about suggested amounts? Is that something that's on there? Like you were saying, someone's on Elm Street, someone's on Metal Street, and they'd like to enter in a contract. Do they just kind of pull that number out of thin air, or is there some sort of suggestive feature very similar to what you'll get from like?
Well, I think that's something that may exist at some point once we're to the storefront stage. Once they've built out user interface specific to rideshare services, all that sort of functionality comes into play. But you have to understand at this stage, the boardwalk stage, it's all very generic. It's not specific to any particular kind of service like rideshare.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Is exactly right, Robert? It's just as he said. It's right. It's generic. It's just not specific at all. And that's an important concept to understand. Like all these marketplaces, the reason why reputation would mean nothing if it was just if reputation did not have any context. So it matters that each marketplace that will be created has its own separate reputation. So you're not just getting Swarm City reputation, you are getting reputation in a particular context, meaning in a particular marketplace. So you could see, oh, this person has a ton of rideshare reputation, or this person has a ton of buy-sell, like an Amazon type reputation, or home share, or as a contractor, as an artist, whatever. All these marketplaces have contextual reputation. So that way you can see, oh, yeah, this person's an artist who does a lot of rideshare, who does a lot of blah, blah, blah. So it really starts to show what types of things this person values. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. So, I mean, ultimately what you're saying is, you know, once we start getting into outside of Pioneer and that starts to expand, you can start seeing under which one of those hashtags, smart contracts, or AKA, I guess, job classifications, you can see how many jobs this person has done, and I guess ultimately gauge their reputation, because you can say, like you said, that person's more of an artist, or that person's more of a developer, that person's,
Right.
you know, driving like that person prefers to drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely makes sense. I can tell you one of the things that I experienced with Swarm City was I tried doing a lot of research, but it was tough for me to find any information, because you know when you go to swarm.city, it basically puts you
It's the app.
it basically puts you in a marketplace. So I was trying.
Right.
One of the things I'd like to know for the viewers and the listeners, where is the best place for them to find more information on Swarm City?
So if you do go to swarm.city but haven't created a user profile yet, you will see right below, there's a sort of a big yellow header. Below that, there's a link to thisis.swarm.city. So that has, and actually if you scroll down to the bottom of swarm.city or thisis.swarm.city, you'll see like links to all sorts of stuff. The This Is site will eventually be built out. It's something I've been working on for a while. It's being designed, all the copies done for it. But that will be the place to go in the near future. So this is .swarm.city. But in the interim, we always release like any of the announcements or updates through Medium. And you can get to there are links to that on the swarm.city website or thisis.swarm.city. Or you could also, if you just followed us on Twitter at SwarmCityDApp, DAPP. I always send out when there's new announcements or new information. But if you go to our Medium, you can read all about what the project is. You can read exactly where we are in our dev schedule. All that stuff is right there. And that's another link. That's press.swarm.city. But if you just, like I said, just go to
press.swarm.city will take you there.
Right.
And that's the Medium for Swarm.
For Swarm City, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but like I said, so if you just go to swarm.city and scroll all the way to the bottom, you can see a link to our Medium, a link to our Twitter, a link to our Facebook, all that stuff. The other thing though is if you're really interested, the best place to communicate, like you could communicate directly with me or any of the dev team or even Robert, anybody you want to in the community in our Slack. So that's another place we've got a good amount of activity in there.
Yeah, I'll share the. Actually, I have a Slack invite, but I'll need you to send me another one because the one that I had was, I believe it was expired. So another one was made for me, but I haven't checked it since joining the Slack channel. So yeah, I'm curious to see, but I really want to see the project come to fruition because I use Craigslist all the time. I use Amazon Seller. There's a lot of things that I do peer-to-peer. And so I'm anxiously awaiting Swarm so that I can start flooding it with mindless jobs that I want people to partake in.
I love it, yeah.
But also I'd like to, especially if it's dealing with an ERC20 token, that'll probably be easier for people to, do jobs using another currency that's within the Ethereum blockchain. I can already see people kind of forking off of it or kind of branding something new around it. It's just like with Steam or Steemit. People join that and they found a new job for themselves. Something that maybe it basically creates innovation. Someone creates an innovative platform, and when other people start to use it, especially when it's community related, people can develop businesses around it, or they can start making money off of it. That can become their sole source or their main source of income. So, when my mind starts thinking about it, I do know that there's so much more that's going to come out of it as it grows. So it's not just going to be like the new Craigslist. That's kind of like when a guy says, like on Craigslist, a guy says, oh, I want to be a mechanic, or I want to sell cakes, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. the first thing they think of is, oh, I'll go to Craigslist or I'll go to Facebook Marketplace or something of that sort.
Yeah.
And then they start making money doing this thing, just using this little small community. And I believe that SWAT and Swarm City will offer that opportunity for people. So once they can dive in, start looking at these different job hashtags, they can start figuring out new ways to make money. So that's the beauty of decentralization and innovation on the blockchain. It's that you're basically giving the power back to the people, and you're opening people's minds to something new, to do something that maybe they didn't think of before. So it's kind of crazy how it works, but it's contagious. I think innovation is contagious.
Yeah, the barriers to entry are really, really low. That's one of the key things about this. If you want to open up a brick and mortar storefront, I mean, it takes a lot of capital, a lot of permitting, tons of things. But this is a marketplace that'll be very, very easy for people to get in on.
That's what I'm excited about. So the next version 2, when do you think that's going to be coming out?
Well, I can't give you specific dates. We've learned our lesson about dates in the past, so we never tell. But soon, it should be very soon. Like you can go if you're in our Slack, or once you get into our Slack, you can see. You go into the dev channel and you can see like all the movements that are happening every single day. There's like a ton of dev work being done, or even in our GitHub. So we're definitely getting close. It's happening soon. But I was hoping that, do you mind if I there's like one other level of Swarm City that I think might be very interesting for you and your listeners. Do you mind if I talk about it?
Absolutely. I do not mind.
So, okay, good. So there's this idea that anybody can create their own marketplace, their own hashtag in Swarm City, and it's very easy to do. So say I want to create a buy-sell marketplace like an Amazon in Swarm City. What I'll be able to do is just log in, hit like a little plus button, name my marketplace, and decide how much I want to charge for every single transaction that goes through my marketplace, right? So as a marketplace owner, I will make money by people transacting through my marketplace. So for people finding each other and, communicating and transacting through my marketplace. So my goal is to make my marketplace the best place to transact that I possibly can, right? So my incentive is to create a great storefront for it that makes it very easy for people to find each other and transact. And also it incentivizes me to act as a good mediator for any problems that arise. So if two people are in a deal in my marketplace and they have a bad time, well, I can figure out who really is the person that's right in the situation and who is wrong. My incentive is to be fair and to adjudicate the fairest way, because I want people to think that my marketplace is a fair place to do business, so that more people will do business there, right? So there's that aspect. But another aspect is this idea that we called hives, and hives are communities. The problem with Uber, to me, there's a few, but the main problem is it puts the marketplace and the community all under the same authority. So if you think about what Uber is, it's a marketplace, so it's a place where people find each other to do drives and to do rides and drives. But it's also a community. It's a bunch of drivers who are doing those drives, right? So in Swarm City, we separate those. The marketplace and the community are two separate entities, because Uber's incentive right now, who do they side with? Well, a lot of times they side against the drivers for the riders because they know they need more riders involved to make them money. But that's wrong, because it screws over the drivers. So in Swarm City, the marketplace is separate from the community. So say you're a bunch of rideshare drivers. You can get together in the same hive. You can join together in the same hive, and as the same hive, choose to do drives in different marketplaces. You could choose to do drives to be drivers in the hashtag Need a Ride marketplace or the hashtag Need a Ride Texas marketplace. You guys could choose in whatever marketplace you want, whatever benefits you the most. But the reason why the hive is so important, the community is so important, is because when they band together, they can also decide to allocate a portion of the funds that they make as hive members to a general pool of funds, right, that they could then use to, say, offer insurance for those Hive drivers or do marketing for those Hive drivers. And it also bands their reputation together so that if you're a driver in this Hive, whenever you do a ride as a representative of that Hive, you are gaining reputation not only for yourself, but for your Hive. So if a rideshare rider is in a marketplace and they see that your Hive is operating in there, well, maybe that, if your Hive has great reputation, maybe that rider would say, oh, I only want drivers from that Hive. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I mean, a Hive is ultimately a guild, if you will, or a small group of people that come together and basically
work cooperatively.
Yeah, they work cooperatively underneath the same, I guess it would be underneath the same job description or hashtag that's created. But I think what caught my eyes the most is
value the same thing.
The ownership of a tag. I like that. I'll probably be the first one to create the cannabis, marijuana, whatever hashtag. Like, I'm going to create that, and I'll be the mediator between any issues that may arise. I'm kidding, by the way, but I will be the first to create it.
Well, listen, no one can stop you if you decide to do that.
And that's what I like about it. I mean, it would be too, I won't say responsible, but it would be between adults, I'm assuming, that these transactions would take place. So, I mean, I can't imagine very many kids on Swarm City. But, yeah, I mean, that's kind of crazy. Like, that's kind of wrapping around my head. Do you choose the fee, or is it kind of a set fee for when someone sets the job?
So the marketplace owner decides what fee they will charge for every transaction that goes through their hashtag. So, and it'll be a fixed fee. So say it's like 0.0001 SWAT or something. And so the cool thing is though, the hashtag owner, the marketplace owner could also use, since that's all being done in a smart contract, it happens automatically once you set the price, once you set the hashtag fee, the marketplace fee. You can choose to divvy up that fee to different people who are maintaining that hashtag, who own that hashtag. So say like I'm a hashtag owner, it's hashtag need a ride, and I own that hashtag, but I want someone to market my hashtag, my marketplace. I want someone to do communications for my hashtag. Well, what I could do is I could hire a marketing Hive to do my marketing for me, and I can pay them a percentage of that hashtag fee. Like I could allocate, if the hashtag's fee 0.001, I could maybe go 0.025 or something. Allocate. So for every transaction that goes through, I could allocate that much to a marketing Hive who's doing my marketing for me.
Okay, and that would be, so basically that would be the same thing like a Hive. I mean, someone owns the tag, if you will, and they can delegate different, not just tasks, but different amounts of compensation within that Hive as well.
That's right. Yeah. So So ultimately, like I could hire a marketing Hives, or say I'm not very, like I don't want to deal with dispute resolution myself. Maybe I am the hashtag owner, and I know it's my responsibility to adjudicate disputes, but I don't want to do it myself because whatever, it takes a lot of time, or I'm not very good at it. I could also hire a dispute resolution Hive to deal with any disputes that go through my marketplace, and I would choose the Hive that has maybe the best reputation, or maybe has almost the best reputation, but has also the best rates. I could choose that way, and then I could allocate a portion of my hashtag fee, my marketplace fee, to them to adjudicate all disputes on my hashtag.
All right, hey Matthew, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let the listeners and viewers know that you donated 25 SWT for Swarm City tokens, and I'm going to be giving some of those away. I'm going to give those away in a Steemit post, actually. So anybody who's listening, just look out for the Steemit post. And I'm just curious, do you have a Steemit profile?
Do I? I probably do. I think it's at Matthew Carano. So it's just same as my Twitter handle.
Okay. Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to do was have you let the listeners and viewers know where they can find you and where they can find Swarm City. So just go ahead and drop those contacts.
Yeah, the best way probably is for me is at Matthew Carano, MattheWCarano, on Twitter. That's basically my profile everywhere. I just use my full name, and so if you want to reach out, you can always reach out there. Swarm City, I would say, is you could, if you just go to swarm.city and scroll down to the bottom there. There's links to all of our profiles, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Medium. You can just find everything you need if you scroll down to the footer of that website.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to try to reach out to you on Steemit, following you on Twitter, and obviously following closely the entire Swarm City project, because I really want to jump in and start earning some SWT. So
Nice.
That's the goal. But so I really want to thank you for taking the time out to educate not only myself but also the listeners and viewers that aren't here. And yeah, I'll be reaching out to you after the show.
Okay, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care, Matt.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, guys. So everybody that was listening, that was Matt Carano. He's the communications director for the Swarm City Token project. I wanted to be educated, and he had some pretty valuable information for anybody who's interested in peer-to-peer services. I mean, like you heard, it was born out of ride sharing. There was a lot of centralization. As you know, Uber was getting over-regulated in a lot of cities and towns, and that's how this project was born. But I think as the project has grown, they can see that it facilitates a lot more than just ride sharing. It facilitates all types of peer-to-peer transactions, and that's what I get so excited about, because I can see someone joining Swarm City and coming up with a new idea, a way to bend it to work for whatever idea or product or service it is that they have to sell or offer. What do you think about that, Robert?
Sounds great.
See, Robert says it sounds great. All right, I know I got some Steemians that are listening, and I know that you guys are interested in this Steem coin donated by Papa Pepper. And so what I'm going to do is give you the phone number. The phone number is 1-844-722-8224. I want you to call in, and we can talk about anything you want to talk about. If you're a Steemian, of course, the first Steemian to call in, you're going to get this coin. So the first Steemian to call in, yeah, we're going to have a little bit of conversation, but you are going to win this 99.99. It's 1 ounce of silver. We're just going to round it up.
Can I call in and get it?
Yeah, if you walk out of the studio and call in, and
I have a Steam account.
You do have a Steam account. Yeah, you guys, if you don't know, Robert Mayer, he is on Steam, and his username is at Pongod, PONGGOD. And as you know, I'm on Steemit as well. I'm at XTRODINARY Pilot. That's Extraordinary Pilot. And the reason the spelling is butchered is because when I tried using Gmail to create an Extraordinary Pilot account after initially getting my pilot's license, Extraordinary Pilot was taken. So I tried all these different variations of spellings, and unfortunately, none of them actually worked. So I just kind of butchered it up a little bit, and that's how I came up with the username. And I swear, I think I just heard my phone ring. Someone answered the "Will you marry me?" question from this jewelry box that I pulled out. Caller?
Yeah.
Whom do I have the pleasure of speaking?
We Tree Bonsai.
We Tree Bonsai. Well, how are you?
Good. Enjoying the show.
You enjoying the show? Did you learn anything about Swarm City Token?
Yes.
What'd you learn?
Oh, wow. That there's a whole lot of media out there when it comes to this internet.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's quite amazing. I'm very surprised at the stuff that's going on, not just with this token, but with other tokens as well. I mean, there's some coins out there that definitely I look at them and I think to myself, no, I'm good. But when it comes to, if something catches my eye and I keep thinking about it, then I know it's a good product. Hey, WeTree, Are you looking in the you looking in the camera?
Me? No, I don't look at the camera, but I'm looking at the screen.
Well, look, you get this token. You're getting this Steam token because you're the first Steamian to call in. What I want you to do is send me a private. Actually, no. Just go ahead and post on the post how I can contact you privately. The post on Steemit, the one that has my letting you know that we're on air. Just go ahead and post on it and give me a way of contacting you. I know that I could probably send you a private message on Twitter.
Yes, you can.
Okay, what I'll do then is I'll reach out to you on Twitter, and I'll also be doing a post to let everybody know that you'll be the proud new owner of 1 ounce silver coin with the Steemit logo emblazed on it. So, hey, huh?
That'll be something to say back for my grandkids.
Yeah, I would say save it for your grandkids. I mean, who knows if the Steam logo is going to change. One of the things is it's selling for more than what the actual silver value is. So that's a good sign. Last I heard they were selling for $60.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
I'm not in it for money. It's like it's the idea of having the coin itself. And, I'm trying to encourage my kids and grandkids to join Steam. I can't get them there yet. And it's like, you're having problems getting online. My kids are young, my grandkids are young, and I can't get them on it.
well, I think that after they see this silver coin, I think that they might change their mind, especially when they hear how you got it, how you received it. I think that might actually change their mind.
That would be cool.
But yeah.
My Twitter account is different than my Steemit account.
Yeah. I actually I saw you following the show this morning, so I recognized the name.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll reach out to you. Thanks for calling, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. And thanks to Salt and Pepper, too.
Absolutely. I'll be sure to let him know who got it.
Okay, great.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye. All right, guys. So anybody who was listening, the first person to call in and win the coin was actually We Tree Bonsai. She's a user on Steemit. I've seen her name pop up on YouTube. I've seen it pop up on Twitter. So I think we have another caller.
Hello, doctors.
Hello.
This is the infamous Frank Bacon. How are you, extraordinary?
I'm doing well, Frank Bacon. How about yourself? It's always a pleasure.
Doing great. Hey, you guys brought up a couple of things with the last guest on Storm City. Good job, by the way. I wasn't able to listen to all of it, but that's why we have replay. So I'll pick it up on the replay when you guys post it again. But you brought it up. You were talking about the fact that you had to have the butchered spelling of your name because you couldn't get the first one, or the first one was taken. That's what I'd like to talk about more. Is like I understand how these blockchain projects are. They have a lot of fanfare and a lot of explanation of how they're going to be working and what. But we're still users, and we're still doing things like losing keys or losing accounts or getting hacked or getting locked out of accounts. So I really want to know what these guys are doing on the identity side of these chains and these chain experiments. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you want to know what I'm doing personally, or you want to know these other blockchain projects that are coming up, what they're doing?
What the other blockchain projects are doing? Because like you and me personally, it's like once we get in, we store our keys. We're smart about it. We've made some mistakes in the past, but those mistakes multiply out. So like Steemit's got hundreds of thousands of users supposedly, but many thousands of those accounts are accounts that have been locked out. People have been locked out, or they screwed up. I just did this yesterday. I was onboarding a new user yesterday, and we actually had to go through 3 different ways to try and get a Steemit account set up for him. The first one took too long. The second one was he butchered it. He accidentally made a mistake in the spelling, and then by the third account, we finally had an open account. So there's 2 dead accounts to create 1 active account. So that's why I'd like to see what Swarm City and some of these other guys are doing on the identity side of blockchain functionality. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, I'll let Robert explain it because Robert was the one that onboarded me onto SWT, and I think he'll have a pretty good explanation.
Well, I'll try.
Very
I
cool.
don't have any great expertise on that, but I don't know that they're doing anything really unique as far as identity goes. When you go to the swarm.city to create an account, you'll create a unique username, and then once that you process that request, behind the scenes it'll create your Ethereum wallet address that's tied to your account. You can look at it on Etherscan just like any other Ethereum address, and you'll use a password to log into that UI. Now, you can also, behind that, obviously, is there's going to be private keys that after you create your account, it'll ask you to please back them up, because that is highly critical, as we all know. So from that point on, you'll just log in with your username and password.
Yeah, so Frank, on SWT, you actually you get an IPFS passkey that's created. There's also
it's an IPFS hash that you can use if you need to restore your account
for restoring
if anything happens.
But there's also isn't there a data file that's created that can be created as well?
You can also back up as a JSON file. It's another way to restore your account if you run into some
I've had
issues.
similar experiences with like the Light Wallet from Singular back in the early days when they were one of the first to be doing stuff like this. And so it's, in a sense, it's just coming down to good wallet maintenance. A good Ethereum wallet maintenance is what you guys are saying for the Swarm City token.
Exactly. So like if you like on OpenLedger, you can go through the when you create an account on OpenLedger.io, you can actually put a username and a password. But in order to get access, there's still the hash that's created, or there's the JSON file that's created for OpenLedger as well. So it's kind of the same concept. So the cool thing is, like, I know that when I log in, at least I know what the password is. I don't have to necessarily copy and paste or go look for it somewhere, being told not to save it in the cloud because the cloud's not safe. I mean, yeah, it gets kind of crazy. I've known people who actually sat down and wrote their password, just like wrote it all out.
Yeah, hard wallet version 1.0.
Exactly.
Well, I'm looking forward to this because I have a Lyft driver in the family, so we're especially interested in the developments in Swarm City. So I'll let you guys get back to your show. I just wanted to pop in with a quick hello, and good luck to you guys. Thanks again for having such a great show and promoting it.
Hey, thanks, Frank Bacon. I really appreciate it. I'll be talking to you.
Absolutely, my friend. Take care.
All right, bye. All right, guys, if you're just tuning in, you're at Crypto Talk Live. If you want to call in and talk to us, phone number is 1-844-722-8224. We're discussing all things blockchain, all things cryptocurrency. If you missed it earlier, we had Matthew Carano on the air of the Swarm City token, and we've given away this beautiful Steemit round to the lucky winner, Tree Bonsai. So we'll be sending it out to her. So if you have any questions or if you want to get engaged in the conversation, just give us a call. So Robert, I got a question for you. Outside of Swarm City token, what other cryptocurrencies are you holding or have you invested in?
Probably too many. Got a little carried away back in August when everything was mooning, and ended up buying a few altcoins that are probably a little high at the time. So right now I think I've maybe got 15 or so, obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum. EOS is one that I've got a pretty substantial holding in that I feel has tremendous long-term potential. SWT, of course, that was the very first one I ever bought because I believed in the concept, and I bought that before I even bought Bitcoin for the first time. So I hold a decent amount of that because I think it has tremendous long-term potential. Beyond that, I've got let's see, what else? I've got some Dash, Monero.
You really are holding.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert in it, but I think some of the ones like Dash and Monero are going to be around for a while. They're not going to be flash in the pan. With some of these other alts, these ICOs that come out, it's it's just a wild guess. Is this going to be one that sticks or not?
Yeah, from what I understand, a lot of people are creating ICOs just by simply creating a white paper and a landing page, and then in some cases collecting millions of dollars. Like, which one is it? Filecoin. So many people. I mean, people of influence and people with plenty of disposable income and professional investors reached out to me. Hey, have you heard about Filecoin? No, never heard about Filecoin. So I look it up, and I'm looking for some sort of proof of concept. I can't find an application. I can't find a beta. I can't find some sort of a demo. There was just nothing that I could find on this Filecoin, but somehow they were able to raise in excess of $250 million.
Yeah, it's truly the Wild West out there with all these ICOs popping up every week. It becomes a matter of trying to figure out which ones are legit and which ones aren't, because just like the dot-com boom in the late 90s, you had all these startups. A lot of them aren't going to be around a year from now or 6 months from now. It's just a matter of determining which ones are going to be the ones that have long-term staying power, and do your due diligence. Research the project the best you can, the teams that are behind them, what kind of track records do they have. I mentioned EOS before. One of the best things about EOS, in my opinion, is Dan Larimer's behind it. He's got a legitimate track record. He created BitShares, a popular crypto exchange, created Steem, which is growing in popularity. So he's got two real-world projects that have proven themselves, and that means a lot to me because the guy knows what he's doing. So I think the bold claims they're making, it remains to be seen whether EOS is going to fulfill its promise as a potential Ethereum killer. But I'm optimistic. I think it's gonna go a long way.
So, although I'm aware of EOS, I see it everywhere. In fact, on my phone, I'm part of EOStalk.io. So I'm engaged in the EOS conversation, but I really don't know what EOS is and what the claims are that Dan's making. I just know that it's constantly rated as one of the top coins right now.
Well, and I don't want to speak on their behalf because I'm certainly no expert.
Yeah,
on
I'm
it,
just asking you your
but
opinion.
I think the obvious problems that we're seeing with our most popular blockchains, namely Bitcoin and Ethereum, is that the throughput is very limited. How many transactions per second can they handle? I think with Bitcoin it's something like 7. I mean, that's nothing. But Dan Larimer is claiming that EOS will be capable of handling hundreds of thousands per second. We're talking about in league with Visa. I mean, that's a game changer if they're able to actually make that happen.
So is EOS going to be a blockchain or a fork of Ethereum?
No, it's its own unique blockchain. Now, the coin that they have right now is an ERC20 token, but that's just an interim thing, is my understanding, is that eventually when their ICO ends, which is a year-long event, they're going to have their own unique coin, and how that's going to transition, I really have no idea, but I think the token we're using right now for EOS is just a temporary one.
That's one of the things that I found confusing was that, I kept seeing the EOS token, and I knew that it was an ERC20 token on the Ethereum blockchain, but I wasn't exactly sure what EOS is. But EOS ultimately is its own blockchain. And for those of you that don't know, I mean, Robert's already said it, but Dan created, he was a co-founder and creator of Steem, which is its own blockchain, and Steemit.com is the actual proof of concept. It's a social networking site that lives on the blockchain. Dan was also one of the co-founders and creators of BitShares blockchain, which is just, I know that I use BitShares as a currency. I'm invested in BitShares.
It's an exchange.
Yeah, so I use
decentralized exchange.
Yeah, decentralized exchange. So I actually use it on OpenLedger.io, which I mentioned earlier. So there's quite a few currencies on there that you can buy and sell. There's tethered currencies, and then there's Open Ether, Open BTC. So there's a lot of flexibility on the BitShares blockchain. So, what else is it about EOS that's going to stand out? I mean, is it just going to be facilitating transactions, or is
No. It's also going to have the ability to support their own versions of smart contracts. So the thing that differentiated Ethereum from Bitcoin is the ability to create decentralized apps on that platform through the use of smart contracts. Well, EOS has the same plan in mind, that they will be able to. In fact, I think I read something about supposedly there's already as many as 1,000 different development projects in the works for decentralized apps on the EOS blockchain. So if they can do that as effectively as Ethereum, but with much higher transaction throughput, I mean, that's a pretty enticing opportunity.
So when you bought your EOS, where did you initially purchase it?
I probably used Changelly maybe the first time. I don't recall exactly. I think the last time I bought was on one of the exchanges. There's so many of them now.
So do you have a BitShares account?
Actually, that's one I've never used yet. Again, there's so many exchanges, and I
use BitShares. BitShares was actually the first exchange that I ever became a part of, and I mean, people have heard the story countless times from me because I tell anyone who will listen. But it was about 2,000 Steem that I accidentally sent to the wrong person the first time that I tried to cash out. So I was a little bit weary about moving forward. But I mean, that was also user error. That was my fault. It was something that I did, and there was a lack of understanding. But also there was a lack of help when trying to do my first transaction. So that was kind of the issue that I ran into. But yeah, I would definitely recommend creating a BitShares wallet. There's a lot of tokens that are for sale on there. EOS, you can definitely find EOS.
Yeah,
on there as well.
It's one of them that's on my list.
Yeah, I wonder if SWT will ever be available on OpenLedger. I'm not sure, but you were mentioning Changelly.
Mm-hmm.
What other exchanges have you used?
Have I used?
Yeah.
I've used Bittrex a lot. I've used HitBTC. I've used Liqui. Maybe half a dozen different ones. Ether Delta, as I mentioned earlier. Not my favorite, but sometimes the most practical for any ERC20 tokens.
How about TradeQuick?
I've not even heard of that one.
Yeah. Oh, I'll send you a link to that one. I think you should check it out. That one is another blockchain-based exchange that's on something called the Viva blockchain. Have you heard of Viva Coin?
No.
Okay. Then that's something that we're going to have to cover on one of these shows. But yeah, I just got my Bittrex account recently. I was having issues with the verification process, and I think that's one of the things that I'm starting to find crazy about cryptocurrency, decentralization, anonymity, and all the stuff that the blockchain had been built around, is that the larger exchanges that you go to start requiring the same identifiable information that the fiat banking system requires. So it's like, as these exchanges start to grow, we're just getting corralled back into the same old way of thinking. Right.
Well, if you're going to enter into an exchange with fiat, then you're bringing the traditional financial institutions into play, and they're going to have those requirements, and I'm not sure there's any way around it at this point. As far as buying Bitcoin, my personal preference is to use BitQuick, because I don't have to deal with any KYC regulations. I can walk into a bank with cash and make a deposit into somebody's account, and then 15 minutes later, I've got Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah.
So, BitQuick?
Bitquick.co. There's a few others that I think operate in a similar manner. I've used it probably 15, 20 times. It works really great. It's really simple.
So how is it that you go in the bank and how is it that you go into the bank and you put some cash in the account without?
Okay, let me give you the overview as I see it. Basically, sellers of Bitcoin can list Bitcoin for sale on the BitQuick site, and if you're wanting to purchase, you can go there and see a list of all these sellers in descending or ascending order by price, and each seller has got a bank associated with them. Say, for example, Capital One or Bank of America or Wells Fargo. And then I see a price that I like and a quantity that I want to buy, and I place a hold for that amount. Let's say I want to buy 0.2 Bitcoin that somebody's selling 1 Bitcoin worth. And I can place a hold at the for that amount at the asking price. And then once that's part of that process is I have to provide the destination wallet where I want the Bitcoin to be sent to, and some information, contact information like an email address or something. And then once the hold is placed, I have a 3-hour time window to go to that bank and make a deposit into that seller's bank account with cash.
Have you run into any issues? Like, I know that sometimes I try to put cash into. I've tried paying someone cash via their bank account, and sometimes the branches say no, because of the Patriot Act. You aren't allowed to put X amount of cash in someone's account, even if it's just $1,000.
Okay, well, all the times I've used it has been for much lower amounts. We're talking hundreds, and I haven't run into that issue. I've dealt with Bank of America, I've dealt with Capital One, Chase, all the usual big banks. I have not run into that issue myself.
So, one of the things that I was wondering is, I talked to, Papa Pepper, for instance, and he was talking about his his family and how he's the main one that works, and he's doing the crypto. And I know initially his wife was kind of like, just didn't believe it, or maybe it was just beyond her understanding at the moment. Have you run into anything like that with your, with your spouse
Oh,
and
yeah.
your family and friends?
Definitely.
What does she say?
She's skeptical, but I think she views it as, let him play with his crypto stuff. As long as it doesn't involve too much money, I'm not going to worry about it.
Does she see it as gambling or just...
I think it's more of a matter of she thinks I'm doing something illegal, and she's worried about the authorities coming after me, but I'm not doing anything illegal.
Every time, I've become like this crypto evangelist, if you will, but every single time that I introduce or I bring it up to someone else, depending on what their first impression about cryptocurrency or Bitcoins were, one of the things that I normally get from them is, isn't that illegal? I get that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, people think that I'm doing something illegal or that eventually the government's going to show up.
Silk Road.
Yeah, I hear Silk Road. Someone, the other day, some guy was arguing with me and told me that Bitcoin could only be used in the dark web. And I was like, have you even been to the dark web?
And I've bought Amazon merchandise with Bitcoin before, okay?
Exactly.
So, I understand. It's just people who aren't really, their only exposure to it is through
the news,
mainstream news. I mean, obviously they're going to hear the negative stories and make those connotations about drug dealers and all kinds of shady characers. So,
and
that's
CIA
understandable.
assassins and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, even Benny Shepard, the guy who runs the studio, he when I first talked to him about Bitcoin, he was under the impression that it was MLM, that it was something MLM related.
Maybe he's thinking of BitConnect.
I think he was thinking, because he typed it into Google, he typed in Bitcoin MLM, and then the first thing that popped up was BitConnect, and I was like, oh, those people are always in trouble. That's that product has no traction, and in fact, I think it's banned in the United States. Like, you're not allowed to sign up for it here for whatever reason.
Yeah, I saw a pretty funny video of what looked like, a real evangelist at one of their events where he was just full mode preacher style. It was pretty hysterical, actually.
Yeah, I haven't looked any. I think who would it would have probably been like Jeff Berwick or something who posted. That was probably the last thing that I've heard about BitConnect. But I can't even wrap my head around how you can tie MLM and cryptocurrency. I mean, people.
Oh,
are
there's
creative.
well, see, that's the downside of all this excitement around crypto is that it's such a huge opportunity for scams, and they're popping up. I mean, for every legitimate one out there, there's probably 5 to 10 scams out there trying to take advantage of people's interest in it, and you have to be careful with what you're doing. I mean, I know firsthand there's definitely some traps out there.
My brother got caught up in a situation recently. There was a guy who was, I think he was doing some trading. The whole idea was to do some sort of trading for him, like a disgraced broker, stockbroker, if you will. And he was asking him to send him the money in Bitcoin. And the first thing I told my brother was, no. I was like, you don't even know this guy, and you're just going to send him Bitcoin. I mean, my brother holds no Bitcoin, or at the time he didn't hold any Bitcoin. Yet somehow this guy, like, that was his way of scamming people, was by telling them, oh, they should probably put the money, you should probably put the money that you want me to trade in a Bitcoin and send it to
Here, let me help you out with that.
Yeah, let me help you out with that. That's just like asking me for the keys to my house, my car, and my PIN code to my debit card. So, but yeah, I've definitely noticed a lot of different scams popping up. I did the Harvey Relief Fund after Harvey hit, and that was accused of being a scam. I mean, I think that a lot of people are vigilant about sniffing those things out, but in some cases they're not necessarily doing their due diligence. But I think it's okay to be hypervigilant in such an unregulated, uncharted territory. Have you lost any money in any of those situations other than trading?
Yeah, I have. Lessons learned.
So what? Tell me the story. I got to hear this.
I don't know if I want to go into that, but let's just say that there are some too good to be true investment opportunities out there that I thought I would dabble with, just knowing that there's a risk here and there's a very real possibility that I may end up losing. And sure enough, I did lose some, but not a huge amount.
But that's that feeling, that sixth sense that you normally get when you run into something. And that was one of the things that took me so long to get into crypto, was just following that feeling that this just can't be real. This is too good to be true. In fact, I think we're seeing that right now with Tezos. Are you familiar with Tezos?
Sounds familiar, but
Tezos was a really large ICO. Before Filecoin, it was the largest ICO. And from what I understand, some of the investors are already starting to file suit. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work. I mean, especially considering that these people invested into a token. So I think they're trying to figure out how they're going to file this suit. But I do know that several of the big money investors behind them have actually come together, because apparently this project is imploding. So
there's going to be a lot of that out there. You just got to be wary.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to be wary. Fortunately, when I did lose money, it wasn't from a scam, more so than it was just me shooting the money to the wrong person. I got some of it back. It was a lesson learned. But yeah, that also, when Frank Bacon called in and talked about making sure that your passwords are saved, and what are people doing on these new blockchains. It's kind of the same thing when it comes to transferring your crypto into, or not just transferring, but in exchanging it. There's quite a few easy platforms out there to use. You can use TradeQuick, Bittrex, Coinbase. What's the other one? Block Trades. And what I like about Block Trades is it does it automatically, but I think a lot of people overlook. Have you used Block Trades?
No, I haven't.
So you can basically send Steem to a Steam account using a memo, and then it'll exchange it directly into Bitcoin and shoot it into that Bitcoin wallet. So then you don't have to go through the whole process of sending your Steem to another exchange.
So it's something sort of like a shapeshift or Changelly,
exactly.
In a sense.
Yeah, it's doing the same thing. Yeah. And that was my first experience into that. In fact, at the bottom of my website is a Changelly there's a Changelly widget, so people can, start off by buying crypto into I think 50 USD. They can spend 50 USD, and then they can get into crypto, or they can get a Steemit account, and they'll get their first $6 of crypto if they don't own any, and then they can start blogging, liking, earning a little bit of money, and changing it. You got anything else?
I don't think so.
All right, Robert, let people know how they can find you.
How can you find me? Probably, I'm not really much of a Twitter user. I'm on Facebook, Robert Mayer, Pearland, Texas. That's probably the best way.
All right, well, you heard it from him. His name on Twitter is Pong God. I'm not sure what that means, but I think it might have something to do with ping pong.
It might.
Are
See
you
this little guy?
Balls of Fury? Have you seen that movie?
Oh yeah.
You should have been a character in that one. Well, guys, as always, it's me. I'm Ryan Brown. I can be found at Extraordinary Pilot. That's XTRODINARY. You can find me on Twitter as Extraordinary Pilot, Instagram, Facebook, which I just got. I've been off Facebook for years. Steemit, of course. So if you just type it in Google, you'll find me. One of the things I just wanted to let you guys know, like every week, Wednesday, the Crypto Talk Live show will be happening from noon to 2 p.m. We're going to always have new guests. We're going to try to be entertaining, informative, and try to spread the word about cryptocurrency. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in and look forward to the post, because I'll be giving away some SWT. But this post will only be on Steemit, but I will share it on Facebook. I'll share it on Twitter. But in order to comment and win the SWT, you'll have to comment on Steemit, which means you need a Steemit account. So get that taken care of. But so we'll see you again next week at 12. This is Crypto Talk Live. Ryan Brown, thanks for joining us.